wow, they made me want to do a conversion when we got kicked off. So we'll see. We're in progress. This will be a couple of different segments of recording when you get it on your site, because when I got kicked off, they think that's one recording, and then there'll be another one. So it'll just say part 1 and part 2. So I'll go back to that screen share in just a minute. But first, because you guys have already suffered through that, we're going to listen to the song because that's my favorite. And we get to hear Ella Fitzgerald sing Blue Skies. So nothing like a master.
Did you know that the average adult has 5 to 20 pounds of toxic poop in their body at any given moment? Seems.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
Shining so bright, never saw things going oh so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, they fly. Blue days, all in gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
Okay. I am taking a few liberties with the choice. Clearly that's not a straight up 4/4 time musical rendition of Blue Skies. And that is a jazz version that would be including improvisation in the middle, so that the lyrics no longer need to be understandable, because you've already set the established lyrics in our format that we have. It's a very simple song, really lyric-wise, and so then you can take liberties with it and include some musical improvisation, which allows you to vocalize and really stay within the meter or within the format, within the phrase, but go outside of the set melody. Okay, so that would be, this is considered the jazz age. This is a very moving into the 20s and 30s where jazz is just beginning to get established. And we have phenomenal artists like Ella Fitzgerald, who really emblemized jazz, and she identifies, she's a master, a singer that of, nonpareil. So she really can put a song out there and really for her entire life. So she's popular for many, many, many decades. Let's go back and look at this song one more time. And you can see that here is our format. A, phrase 1, repeating A, phrase 1. B, the second section. It's a longer section. Note that the first 2 phrases are 2 lines, and then we go into a 4-line segment. And then back to 2-line segment, all 3 of the A's starting with B, and then the beats are the same, or the meter, or the tempo of it. So when we talk about Shakespeare writing an iambic pentameter, we're not too far away from that. We're talking about a particular songwriting format that has a certain number of beats. So Tin Pan Alley thrives on the sale of sheet music. This is what their commerce is. It is, you buy the sheet music, then they can afford to buy more paper, print more. Remember, the printing press is relatively common now. Piano lessons are very common. In fact, even in the musical Music Man, one of the big things is piano lessons are given. Piano teachers. This is an acceptable profession for women, and women are piano teachers. You can go to their home and take piano lessons, and kids would be doing this. And again, remember, we really are talking about white urban kids at this point. There is much musical sharing in the African American community, and it has an incredible rich history. And there are certainly piano lessons, and it's a very more fluid style. In fact, this Ella Fitzgerald rendition of Blue Skies is a much more fluid style, and jazz takes a huge part of their influence from the African American community. Sheet music sales are the measure of a song's success, and they put money in your pocket. Al Jolson, a singing phenomenon born in Russia, comes out of the Jewish tradition of synagogue cantor. This is the singing that happens. He's a serious, strong baritone. He goes from vaudeville to just talking pictures. His onstage charisma did not translate well to film. And part of that, I think, well, let's go back to him for a second. Al Jolson is known most for the first singer and the first song that is captured by motion picture. And he does it in blackface. So that's, he's using Irving Berlin's song. Irving Berlin is another, I'm sorry, Al Jolson, of course, is white. Irving Berlin, also Russian born, a son of a cantor, comes to New York City at age 5. He is first a busker. This is a street singer singing other people's songs. So he is on the street singing snippets of songs for people walking by to say, oh yeah, I like that song. Where can I buy that song? So you would be singing the thing that you would want people to buy. He was a singing waiter. He was a song plugger, so he'd hold the sheet music in his hand and promote other people's songs, not his own. But he started at a very young age doing this. And then a boomer, which is called a singing stooge. You're just doing something goofy, for Harry von Tilzer's publishing house. He had incredible success. His first big hit was Alexander's Ragtime Band. He published over 1,000 songs. He published a dozen reviews from 1911 to 1942, including Ziegfeld Follies. We talked about that 2 times ago, last Thursday. Over a dozen major motion pictures from 1929 to 1954, including Top Hat and Holiday Inn. Holiday Inn is the musical that is set right at the beginning of World War II, when World War II actually is before that, but we're in the war, and it's where the song White Christmas comes out of. And then 9 Broadway book shows from 1919 to 1962, a very long career, including adding Get Your Gun. And Jerome Kern says he is American music. Now we're going to take a little listen to both Al Jolson and Irving Berlin, a couple of Irving Berlin tunes. I have to get to my, oh yeah, I forget, I have to do this. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I'm always so confused by the, I'm always confused by the full screen thing because it takes so much, space on your computer. All right, so let's look at our site for a quick sec, and I'll show you. We'll listen to Al Jolson, and we'll listen to Irving Berlin. So when Ella Fitzgerald singing Blue Skies, it was from the hit musical in 1926. Remember, 1926 is in the heyday of the Roaring Twenties. There is incredible prosperity. There's incredible illegal activities going on in the open, bootlegging, drugs, speakeasies, all kinds of things that you can imagine. And Colby can talk about it from his favorite musical, Chicago. Richard Rogers and Loren Hartz write the musical for this stage musical, Betsy. And Rogers and Hart are very, very well-known composer lyricist combination. But this song, Blue Skies by Irving Berlin, is inserted into their musical. This was typical that there would be other songs from other composers put into a musical. And it was an add-on, and then it became the show's biggest song hit. And they were so furious about that because this song then had legs and lasted for years and made tons of money. It becomes an infamous song as performed by Al Jolson with blackface. He wore blackface, and it was the first song heard in a major motion sound film. And he was well known for this particular form of acting, which we saw it first in The Black Crook, but then we continue to see it, and then thankfully it will be discontinued as non-popular anymore. But this is Al Jolson singing You Made Me Love You, You Made Me Love You from the Honeymoon Express.
I've been worried all day long. Don't know if I'm right or wrong. I can't help just what I say. For your love made me this way. Oh, why do I feel blue? There were times when I'd laugh at you, but now I'm crying. No use denying. There's no other girl will do. You made me love you. I didn't think you'd do it. I didn't think you'd do it. You made me want you. All the time you knew it. All the time you knew it. You made me happy sometimes. You made me glad. But there were times here. Oh, I felt so bad. You made me sigh for. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to tell you. Some love from you. That's true. You know what you need. I do. Yes, I do. Give me what I cry for. You know you got friend kisses that I die for. You know you made me love you. You made me love you. I didn't think to do it. I didn't think to do it. You made me want you. All the time you knew it. Just all the time you knew it. You made me happy sometimes. You made me glad. Oh, there were times, dearie. Oh, so bad. You made me cry. Oh, I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to tell you. Some love from you. That's true. You know what to do. Yes, I do. Give me what I cried for. You know you got the brand of kisses that I died for. You know you made me love you.
Okay. Okay, wait, I gotta do that. So that probably gave you the, maybe the visual of someone you may have heard of, Rudy Valley, holding a megaphone with that sort of sound effect. Remember that sound recording is very new at this time. So this is Al Jolson singing that particular kind in that particular style. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody. I was wondering if somebody had a comment because I thought I heard it. No? Okay, and then we're then to go on to Irving Berlin, we'll go back to the beginning of Irving Berlin to his first hit.
Your tongue, you know, those eyes, they do it to me every time you fox away.
Colby, that was very interesting. Thank you.
Sorry, I
Okay,
didn't know I was not muted.
that's okay. You can be paying attention to whatever you want. That's totally fine. We don't need to pay attention to it too, though. So here you go. Let's listen to Alexander's Ragtime Band. And we will hear the difference between this and Blue Skies. Remember, both are from Irving Berlin. And he is a force to reckon with. He is, as they say, he is American music. So his big hit is in 1911. And interesting, successfully introduced by Emma Karas, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Here you'll see this is a very typical image of a gazebo in the park with a band playing, or called the bandstand. And it would be something that you might think of from really the early 20th century.
What'll I do with only dreams of you? That won't come true. What'll I do?
play with music, beautiful music helps Mr. Cupid along. So say it with a beautiful song.
Okay, this is the beginning of the actual tune, Alexander's Ragtime Band. The first piece is What'll I Do? The second piece was Say It With Music. So the first phrase that you heard, it says, come on along to Alexander's Ragtime Band. So I'm going to go back so that we can hear just that beginning of this. And you can note here, Irving Berlin, 101 when he died, like Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Here you go. Okay, so there's a quote. We talked about quotes last time. There's a quote of Swanee River in there. Way down upon the Swanee River, it's a tiny little snippet of musical phrasing. This is an upright piano, and you saw that white piece of sheet music on it in the previous picture. How about those microphones? Pretty exciting. And these are similar. They're earlier than what we're going to use in the Thin Man, but again, microphones are just getting into their very popular stage. Irving Berlin, remember, started out as a singer. So not only is he a singer, lyricist, and a composer. So a very popular instrument at this time, clarinet. There's a violin, piano, and drums with a female singer.
Come on and hear, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Come on and hear, it's the best band in the land. They can play a bugle call like you never heard before. So natural that you wanna go to war. That's just the bestest band what I am. Oh, my honey lamb, come on along, let me take you by the hand. Up to the man, who's the leader of the band. And if you care to hear the Swanee River play, come on and hear, Alexander's Ragtime Band.
Okay, so that gives us a really good snip of his big hit, Alexander's Ragtime Band, although when it was in 1911, it would have sounded a lot more like the Al Jolson, but this was a better recording. So we will, I will take privileges with that and give you a recording that maybe is appropriate to what we are listening to. So almost done here with this Irving Berlin. He is American music. Jerome Kern is another name that we will hear over and over again. And he's in conjunction with the Princess Theater. The Princess Theater was started by the theatrical agent Elizabeth Marbury, 1856-1933. She is of the idea that it can be a small, intimate, clean musical comedy without vulgarity and coarseness, and financially successful. So you don't have to have a girly show to sell tickets. You can sell tickets and people still want to come and see that. It was a relatively small theater, 299 seats, built in 1913 in the theater district on 39th Street. So Broadway has moved uptown, and this was a nice little cherry theater that we have where they can perform these new musicals. A beautiful picture in your book about the seating of the theater. The Garvin Theater, if you recall, has just under 400 seats. So it's a pretty interesting configuration to also be able to make money. The combination of talent that she uses here is Jerome Kern as the lyricist, and he was in a competitor of Irving Berlin, in collaboration with Guy Bolton and P.G. Wodehouse. Together they are become the early musical comedy theater that we hear and was the heyday between World War I and World War II. So it is a great adventure. They really, really performed only 6 major musicals, including Very Good Eddie, Oh Boy, Leave It to Jane, and Oh Lady, Lady. And these were in the early in the early teens. So Jerome Kern was born and trained in New York, and he worked as a song plugger. Remember, that's somebody that's selling somebody else's songs for the publishing house of T.B. Harms, and was a rehearsal show pianist. So he had a great facility with the piano, and he was a songwriter with a passion for the stage. And that's why there was a little bit of just competitiveness with Irving Berlin, who was not trained. Irving Berlin played by ear. He had just an incredible musical sense. Guy Bolton was American, but he was English born, and he was the playwright. So he would write the book story for these things. Wodehouse was originally a theater critic and also wrote the book. So he was also a writer. The music stood on the shoulders of Jerome Kern. And Jerome Kern is somebody that we'll look at for a long time. He wrote what is considered really the first major modern musical, which is Showboat. And Showboat is, we come back to Showboat over and over. It has had numerous revivals starting from the very early times until now. Remember, it's a story that takes on racism because there's a woman that is both African-American and white, married to a white man, and this is illegal in this time. So it's taking on a very important thing. And it also takes on other parts of society. Let's take a moment now, as we're at the end, and see if you have some questions that we can pose to our guest so that we can talk about what it is to be a lyricist. What is it like to be a lyricist in this time? What are things and what were the influences of that? Does anybody have a question that they'd like to put forth in the chat or verbally? And then we'll try and capture those so that we have a good sense of dialogue. And of course, you can also ask them about other things as well. Is there anything that you guys have thought of so far? Okay, I think, Cara, that's a really interesting discussion. Which comes first, the lyrics or the music? And I think that is one that happens in all, that's a question that is perennial. So you know, I've read about things back and forth. So I think that's a really great thing to get on somebody's viewpoint. And I think certain people work different ways. So that'll be a great one to ask. Any other questions?
Yeah, about deadlines, because they, like, how do you write a song with a deadline kind of thing? I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting point. How do you write to a deadline? For example, I was certainly with Dale Wasserman, who we studied for Man of La Mancha when he did a couple of new musicals. I worked on 2 new musicals with him, actually. And he was a book writer, not the composer. But there would be a time we'd be in the rehearsal, and then there would be a song that's not working, and then suddenly we need something new. So how do you write on a deadline? I think that's a really fascinating thing. And we have to definitely in theater be facile for that sort of stuff. Okay, what is your motivation, inspiration when writing lyrics? Good. And what's the hardest to write lyrics for? What kind of show, the name of a show? I mean, you know, that's a sort of open, okay. Is the person that is going to sing the song kept in mind when writing? Okay, that's a really interesting question, because you're usually, I mean, maybe you're writing for somebody, but generally you're writing so far in advance of when it would ever be performed. This question that Colby brought up about deadline, you know, that's something that is, I think, really interesting. And then you would have the person in mind, but you know, that's a good point. Or maybe do you have a person in mind, or do you have an ideal voice that you'd like to hear do this song? So I think all those things are really good, and I'll try and flesh those out, and I will post them so that everyone can look at those. Also, we'll have a page of questions so that we can go down them so that none are forgotten. And also you'll have the chat so you can add more questions, and then you can please turn your cameras on so that our guests can actually see who you are first, at least for the introductions. And we'll start with introductions on that day so that he knows who you are. It's always kind of weird to come up to just a bunch of black screen with white letters on it.
I have a question that may not be for him.
Yeah.
Do you, because it may be a little offensive and I don't mean it that way, but do you ever worry that all the great songwriters, especially for plays and theater, are gone? Like, we have all these legends of people in the past, but who've written pretty much everything, right? You always know it's a so-and-so play, or it's a so-and-so musical, but do we have that in modern day?
So do we have well, maybe what your question could be is, who do you consider a great songwriter today? And then I think what you're asking about is a good question. Is, you know, well, has all the music been invented?
I wonder that all the time, because there's only so many notes in the world, right? There's only so many music.
That reminds me so much of Amadeus when, you know, who's Mozart's foil? And he says to Amadeus, there's just too many notes. You're just writing too many notes. So, but, you know, remember that we're working in a certain kind of a scale. We're not talking about any other, there are many other kinds of scales than the one that is familiar to us in Western world. We have what I think ours is called okay, help me out, my music people, but I think it's called a 12-note tone scale. There's others, there's 9, there's other kinds, and whether it's just tonal or not tonal. So I think that's interesting about when you're talking about songwriters, and you're talking about songwriters specifically for musicals, right? Songwriters in the world. I mean, you know, when you think about musical form, again, we can go back to what is the most common musical form now. I would certainly say rap, based on hip hop, which then came out of a different kind of tradition. But, you know, I think that you can trace things back and forth, and there's always going to be modification and switching, changing of things. Any other, this is a really great question. Really great question. I mean, it's like everything's already been invented. All the stories have been written. And I really don't think so. But I think it's a great question. How does one go about the writing process start to finish? Really great. And then when you write lyrics, do you know if it will be a fast or slow song? That's a really interesting question. And that goes back to the very first thing, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, the music or the words. Anybody else? Love to have a few more questions. So you can be thinking of them. You can email them to me. You can.
I want to know how intently they study the script kind of beforehand before they.
Oh, and what if the script isn't written?
Oh, that's another good question too. So
No?
maybe if a script is already written, I'd want to know how much they study it. And if a script is not already written, how would they go about it?
Okay, so I'll try and paraphrase that to be how it is. But we've been like, for example, we just listened to Blue Skies, which was inserted into Betsy the musical by Rodgers and Hart, and it wasn't even it wasn't even planned on. So clearly not even related to the book at all, just like stuck in. So we've been talking about how do things come together, and I think that's a really interesting question. So I'll put that down. And then
One more.
okay.
How do they illustrate their concept statement?
So you mean do they articulate it in lyrics?
Yeah, I want to know what it looks like when they present it to the director or something.
Oh, well, okay, so let's just try and think about this for a second, because you're talking in a visual term and they're oral. So how do they present their idea? Because you're thinking it's not written yet. Like, how am I the right person to write this?
Yeah.
For this particular moment. Okay. I'll try and write something down that reflects that. And if it doesn't quite hit the mark, Colby, then just try and refine it when we're in the moment.
Yeah, of course.
So that's provided that you're somebody for hire. You're well known, and we're going to hire Sting to write the music for our next musical, and he's going to come and pitch his idea to us. And how is he going to pitch that musical idea? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, does Sting really have to pitch though? Is anyone really going to give him notes?
So the reason why I bring up Sting is because it would be a musical person that probably most people would have heard of. But it depends, because Sting is quite creative and he moves from different format to different format. So yes, you might want to have him talk about what it is. There certainly have even been, very famous stars that want to do a different kind of role, and they have to pitch themselves and sell themselves to something. So,
Interesting.
Okay, maybe not, and maybe Sting wouldn't do it, but everyone thought that it was very interesting when U2 started writing for Spider-Man. And did that actually work out? And what were the circumstances? So I think it's something to consider. But anyway, even when you are not well known, how do you do that? Which comes first? You come to the lyrics. I'm going to print everything that's in the chat. So if I didn't actually say it out loud, I can get it and capture it. Then any last things, because we are at time?
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Sure.
I was wondering if the writers thought of if that song was going to be used for like a dance number, or if a dance number is just fit in where there's a break in the lyrics.
Okay, so where does dance fit in? And also, are you writing for, so are you considering that the song may also be used as a dance number? So they might be singing and dancing at the same time, right?
Right, like is the director asking them to plan that, or has the music been written and then the director says, let's put a dance sequence here?
Okay, great.
I just noticed a lot of the, like the Take Me Out to the Ball Game, there's that tap dance. So it's like, was the music there first, or they said, we want to put a dance number here?
A dance break, right? Okay. That's a great question. And also kind of depends on, sometimes I think, yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's a great conversation point. Anything else? So I will stick something in as I think I'll just stick it in as an assignment. I'll put your questions here. I will type up all the questions that we have so far, and then you can just submit. And it will be a 0 point thing, but you can, that way it will just be submitted so that you can think about it. You can look at the questions that we have, and then you can decide if that's going to be one, if you have another thing that you want to add, because I think it's a great thing to think about, and we'll be back on Tuesday. Okay. Any last minute thoughts? Thank you for hanging while we got kicked off. And I will see you next week.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Thank
you.
Thank you.